recording started, and then I'm going to start sharing my screen. And I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing, and hopefully Blackboard will allow me to add the PowerPoint to the courses. I tried to add the one from last week when I said that I did the course introduction, but for some reason it wasn't letting me. It gave me an error every time I tried to attach it. So I'm crossing my fingers that I'll actually be able to attach it this week. So week 2, we are talking about graphing and linear equations. So that is the topic for this week. Oops, that should say July. I'm in the next month. Okay, so basically going to talk about everything that you have to do, and then I'm going to focus on the quiz, the topics that you're going to be learning, a suggested schedule. So a lot of people, I mean, the schedule will really help you so that you know what to focus on and to help you manage your time. And then the discussion this week is math based. So I know a lot of people are going to have questions about that or be unsure where to go with that. So and then at the end, open for questions. So this week you have a discussion, you have an ungraded practice assignment. So the practice assignment, they're odd numbered problems, and you can always check your solutions. So the ebook, it will have the solutions immediately there, and you can click on answer. But if you didn't get that answer and you want to know why, Calc Chat will tell you all of the steps. So you can actually check your steps with what the Calc Chat says so that you can find your error. So that's a great resource. The week 2 assignment is worked out problems. You're going to want to make sure you can show your work for feedback, and those are graded right or wrong. You'll have to ask your instructor. We have, because I'm coordinating all of the college algebra courses, but I'm not teaching any this term. So you'll have to ask your instructor to find out if they allow resubmissions. Most do allow resubmissions, but that's something to ask. And then you have your first quiz, which is going to be this week, and then you submit your work in the Dropbox. So we'll talk more about that. So the way the quizzes are structured is going to be the same for all of the quizzes. There are 10 multiple choice questions. Nathan, your class doesn't allow resubmissions? Yeah, it's all up to who's teaching. Some teachers allow resubmissions, some don't. So if your teacher doesn't allow resubmissions, I would recommend maybe having your answers double checked with tutor.com, or you can even email me with your work and say, hey, can you just look these over? And I'm happy to look them over for you. And I think I have my email address should be on the live session link that I put in all the classrooms. So quiz information. So 10 multiple choice questions. These are timed, and you may be wondering, why are they timed? Well, what we have found in the past is that when we had quizzes that weren't timed, people were not studying for them, and they were trying to learn the material as they were taking the quiz. And that's the whole point of a quiz, is to make sure you have already learned the material. And so that's why we're timing them. So that way you have to study, you have to go through the material beforehand. But because we recognize that, some people, maybe you might run out of time. It's only 10 questions, so we're trying to keep the minimal questions and multiple choice so you don't have to type up your work or anything. But because you may be running out of time, you can submit your work to a separate Dropbox. So there's week 2 quiz, and then there's the week 2 quiz Dropbox. And the Dropbox is where you can submit a document. So you could type up your stuff, or you can do it on paper and do a scan. Basically, excuse me, I gotta get some water. Okay, so basically, when you work through the quiz, write down the problem number, write down the question, do your work. And then that way you have your work on paper. And then at the end, when you submit your work, you will take your paper and you can scan it there, or you can take pictures of it and upload pictures. There's a phone application called Cam Scammer that will actually turn into a PDF. You can upload that document to the week 2 Dropbox. And so how it works is that your instructor will look through the Dropbox and look through your work. And if they see that, oh, you did most of this wrong, but you just missed a minus sign or you missed negative or something like that, instead of, because on the multiple choice, it's either right or wrong, you can give you partial credit back. And so those additional points are then added back onto your quiz score. So that way when you look at your quiz score, you see the actual accurate percentage. And then you'll get a 0 in the Dropbox just so that you know it has been looked at and graded. And then there will be feedback in the Dropbox saying, okay, here's where your error is on this problem. Most people who have submitted their work in the Dropbox have earned anywhere from 5 to 10 points back. Some people have earned more than 10 points. And that's equivalent to a letter grade, essentially. If you earn 10 points, that's 10%. Something's really tickling my throat. But if you can earn 10 points, that can increase your score by a whole letter grade. So it's not required. Not submitting won't hurt your grade, but it can only help your grade. And the advice that I give for people who are worried about maybe running out of time is to start by writing down every single problem, working through, and then if you do run out of time, at least finish the problems afterwards, and then submit your work with the problems you finished, because then you can still get partial credit, even if you didn't have time to finish during the quiz itself. So that is what I would suggest for those who are maybe worried about running out of time, is just do them anyway and submit the work so you can get some points. So the topics covered, these are topics from week 1. We wanted to make sure that you went through week 1, you get your assignment back on week 1, you can get your feedback, so that way you can take a look at what you need to study for the actual quiz. So it's going to cover order of operations, evaluating expressions, simplifying exponential expressions, rational expressions, radicals, multiplying polynomials, factoring, adding and subtracting rational expressions and polynomials, and multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Now, the problems, I've taken a look at all the quizzes that people have taken, and the hardest questions are those that are the rational expressions. And I'm sure when you guys were doing the assignment, that was your hardest part, was going through the rational, because they're fractions and there's a lot of moving parts. So that's where I would do some extra studying, is I would study rational expressions, because there are 3 different questions on there on rational expressions. So that's really important to be able to get those right. So to study for the quiz, number 1 is to review your week 1 assignment, because the stuff that was on the week 1 assignment, the same sort of things are what you're going to be quizzed on. They may not be exactly the same problems. They may look different, but the steps, the process, the type of problem will be the same. Algebra is all about knowing the process. It's about recognizing, saying, this is a fraction, this is a rational expression, here's what I do when I have rational expressions. So you want to be able to look at the process and know what steps to do, even if the equation looks different. So for the week 1 assignment, make sure you know how to do each problem, and try to find practice problems out of the textbook that are similar to those. And you can check the problems at the end of each section to help you do that. I also recommend, there's a pre-test and a post-test for Chapter P that is on the website that comes with the textbook. So I have a link there. And then I've also pulled from one of my favorite websites some extra practice problems on rational expressions, since that's where everybody seems to struggle the most. So you can do those for extra studying. So I would recommend you do all of those things to help study for the quiz. So before I move on to the next slide, are there any questions on the expectations for the quiz, or how the quiz works, or maybe tips to make sure you're successful on the quiz?
No.
Okay, and I don't see anybody typing anything either. If you guys think of anything, of course, you're welcome to email me. Okay, so moving on to what you're going to learn this week. If you took MA104, a lot of this, pretty much all of this is going to be familiar. MA104 is not a required prerequisite, so not everybody has taken that class. So if you haven't, this stuff may be new. But for those who did take 104, this will help be more review for you. So we're going to be finishing Chapter P by looking at Section 6, which is all about graphing and the rectangular coordinate system. And then Chapter 1, we're going to start with 1.1, which is graphs of equations. And then Section 2 and 3 in Chapter 1 are going to be linear equations, which are just basically solving for x. Then we're going to move to Chapter 2, and we're going to look at linear equations on two variables with x and y. So we're going to be basically taking the graphing in the first two sections we look at, the linear equations in the second two sections, and combine them together in the fifth section to talk about them together. So we're going to be kind of jumping around, but they do all flow together. The hardest thing for are equation line and linear models, and that's actually what your discussion is on, is those sort of things. So usually this discussion is a little tricky for people. So that's why I'm going to spend some time to kind of talk about what you need to do for the discussion and help you out. So if you're wondering, if you're curious about, okay, what do I need to know from last week for this week? Because math does build upon each other. So for P.6, you actually only need the first two sections from Chapter P. And then for 1.1, you only need those two sections in P.6. But then when you get to 1.2, you need some more sections from week 1. And they build upon each other. But I did make a note that 1.3 and 2.1 can be done in either order because they do not directly rely on each other. So those can be done in any order. So in my suggested schedule, I actually suggest that you do those in an opposite order. So I know this is probably really small, but I'm going to make sure to attach this document as well when I send out an announcement or an email with all this stuff. So I have it planned out from Wednesday through Tuesday for the whole week. So today, I suggest that you just read through the discussion and have an idea of what you have to do and to go through P.6. So I've broken it out that you've got the reading. You can take notes with the P.6 notes organizer, which is found on the textbook's website. You can watch the videos on P.6. And then I've divided out which practice problems relate to that section. So that way you can work on the practice problems for each section. The best way to learn math is to do section by section. Go through a section, do some problems. Go through the next section, do some problems. That is the best way to learn math. You don't want to try to read everything at once and then work the problems because you're going to be really confused. So I've tried to break it up as a section a day. And I know everybody's schedule is different. You may not have time to do this schedule, but at least you can use this as a guide and work with it, and if you're not sure how to schedule your time. So Thursday, I'm actually recommending that you do a little bit of the discussion, and when I get to the discussion, you'll understand what I mean when it says find 2 years of sales data. And then going through 1.1, doing practice problems for 1.1, and then from the assignment, problems 1, 2, and 3 on the assignment directly relate to 1.1. So I would then work on those 3 problems from the assignment now that you've gone through P.6 and 1.1. So that will help you say, okay, these problems come from this section. Friday then, a little bit more on the discussion, going through 1.2, and then question 4 on the assignment relates to 1.2. So then you can make sure that you do that part of the assignment. That way you're not, if you're somebody who procrastinates, this hopefully will help you from doing that, because you're like, oh, I only need to do 1 problem from the assignment once I've gone through these videos and read through the textbook. Saturday then, and I want to flip-flop 2.1 and 1.3. So Saturday I actually recommend you do 2.3 and work on the rest of the discussion so that you're ready to post the discussion on Sunday. And so go through those, do the practice problems, and that corresponds with sections 5 and 6, or problems 5 and 6 on the assignment. And then you can start also studying for the quiz. I know a lot of people are usually free on Saturdays and Sundays, so that's where I figured you'd start working on the studying. Study for the quiz, and I kind of broke up the studying as well. Sunday, you can post your discussion, start doing replies, go through 1.3, finish up the assignment, do more studying. And then I planned it out so that Monday and Tuesday you really only need to do replies, study for the quiz, and take the quiz. So I've kind of broken it up. Of course, everybody's schedule is different, so you can modify this. But hopefully this will help you manage your time and also gives you an idea of which question on the assignment goes to which section. Do you guys have any questions on this schedule or any feedback on it at all, or, you know, any thoughts on it at all? Do see a couple people typing. Yes, yes. When I send out the email announcement with the recording and everything, I'm gonna email this out along with it. And yeah, if you have to condense a couple days, you can condense it. But yeah, Amber, I figured this would be helpful because then at least you know which section each question is on. So you have somewhere to start with. Okay, the discussion. So this is where a lot of people struggle with this discussion. This is based off of section 2.1. So that you can do parts of the discussion before then, but you can't really finish the discussion until you've gone through 2.1. So don't try to do the discussion right away. Wait until you've gone through 2.1. This discussion is a business application. So we try to show you different ways that algebra can be used in different fields. And so this one is a business application. So if you're going into business, and I'm pretty sure the business majors are required to take this class, this is going to be reminiscent of something that you may do. It's a very simple version of something you may actually do in your business classes. There's a lot of assumptions we have to make for this to work, but at least it gives you an idea of how math can be helpful. So the overall idea of the discussion is that you are going to be looking up data on the internet for a company, whatever company you want, and you're going to be looking for either their revenue or their sales, and you're going to use real data to make an equation that you can use to predict what their sales are going to be in the future. That's the overall goal here, which is something that is good if you're investing. If you're investing money, you might want to be able to do this so you can predict, is this going to make me money? So if you're running a business, you might want to know what you can predict, know whether, okay, we're going to be losing money, we need to change something. So this has a lot of applications, but of course we're looking at a very simple version. So the first step is to pick a company whose sales you want to model and predict, and then look up the sales information, and then you need to pick 2 years of data, because in order to do this you need 2 ordered pairs. And ordered pairs are an X and a Y value, or in this case it's going to be a time, actually I should say it's going to be a year, because you're going to have 2 years. And then sales or revenue, usually going to be in dollars. It could be in $1 billion, $1 trillion, whatever. But that's going to give you 2 ordered pairs. So I like the website statista.com. And I'm going to pull that up. And pull it over for you guys to show it to you. So there are free statistics on here, and then there are paid statistics. So what I usually do is I just type in a company. So let's say I want Tesla, and I'll type in Tesla revenue just to see what pops up. Okay, anything that has a little green plus there, that you can only get if you pay. So that one we can't do. And it looks like those are articles. It looks like all of these are plus signs, so that's not going to work. Let me try Fitbit. Plus sign, plus sign. Well, that one also happens to also be a plus sign that we can't. Okay, so if this website doesn't work, if everything you're finding has a plus sign, like if you click on one of these, it will make you pay. Don't pay. I don't want you to pay. So another option is to go to Google. And then let's type in Tesla revenue, because there's a second website, but I forget the name of it. Okay, so it tells you the number for 2018, but we need 2 years. So we have one ordered pair. Macro Trends, that's the other website. That's a great source for this information. So here they're telling us the revenue for 2 years. It says in 2018 it was 21.46 billion, 2017 was 11.759 billion. So that's the information you need to start this process. So if you can't find it on statista.com, you could try macrotrends.net. I'm going to write that down. Oops. So you need to pick, that's the real world data that you're going to pick. And so you can pick any company. I've had some people actually get data from where they work. So if you have access to that, if you work for a company and they have that data available, you can use your own company that you work for. That's totally cool. Or if you own your own business, you can even use this. You know your profit or something. So using that information, you're going to create a linear equation that can be used to predict the sales of the company. So example 8 in section 2.1 does something very similar. So your first step is to find the slope, and that's something you learn about in section 2.1. And then your second step is to use point slope form to get your equation. So that is also in section 2.1. So I have like these in purple are the key things that you need to do. You need to do the 2 ordered pairs, you need to find the slope, and then you put it in point slope form. And then I should add that you need to then solve for y. This will all make sense once you start going through 2.1. So once you start getting through 2.1, come back to this video or print off this slide or whatever, so you have this while you're working through it. Then once you have your equation, you predict the sales 2 years from now. So we're not going to predict that far out, but 2 years from now is going to be for 2021. So you want to predict the sales for 2021. And so what that means is you need to plug in that number for X. So you're going to basically replace X with 2021 and then do the math, basically evaluate the expression. And that's sort of something that you've learned about in section P.2 was evaluating expressions and simplifying following the order of operations. So that's the basis of the discussion. So it's based off of 2.1. Do you guys have questions on this, the expectations for the discussion at all? Okay, clear as mud. Well, it's probably as clear as it's going to make sense right now before you actually work through it. Now, because you have to do math, and I know that typing up the math is hard, what I recommend doing is doing it on paper and then taking a picture and putting the picture in your discussion. That's probably the easiest way to do this. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to type it up. So that's my recommendation. But you want to show your work so that people can help you if you have errors, or other people can learn from you. Because that's what this discussion is all about, is everybody's going to be making their own equations, and then you can use their work to help you say, oh, I didn't do that, that's where my error is, or to help each other out. So that's what we're doing for the discussion. And so that's basically everything that I wanted to tell you guys about week 2. If I have time, I'm going to try to put some extra videos in your classrooms and email them out to you guys. That's my hope. I hope to have a video to kind of walk through 2.1. But do you guys have any questions on anything I've talked about so far or on the math? I'm happy to answer anything. Okay, I got 2 no's. Yeah, if you have to reach out, I should have. So my email address is skpost. Don't bother trying to figure out how to pronounce my last name. I don't. That's why I just sign everything. And then my office phone number, 913-309. Oops. Oh no. There we go. 4425. And I am on Google Hangouts pretty regularly, so you can always send me a chat on Google Hangouts. And if it's something that I can't answer, that is something that you should ask your instructor, I'll make sure to let you know. So I'll be like, oh, this is something that I can't answer. But if it's about the math itself, or like maybe what an assignment is looking for, I'm happy to answer those questions, assuming that I understand your question. Sometimes it's like if you're typing and it's like, oh, what you're asking, especially in math, if you're not familiar with the terminology, it's like, I'm not sure if I'm asking what I mean to ask. So sometimes it's best to email me a picture of what you're trying to do, and then maybe that one's helpful. So since there's no specific questions, I will stop sharing my screen. I will make sure to email this out. But I really do appreciate that you guys took some time out of your day to join me live. I think, to see each other on the video and chat with each other. I'll definitely be doing this again. This is going to be every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Time. I'll be doing it, what I did here, talking about the week, what you need to know, that sort of thing. So that's the plan. And yeah, that's all I've got for you guys. So you can go ahead and sign off. And again, contact me if you guys have any questions. And also, don't forget, take time for yourselves. I know many of you guys are working at the same time you're taking classes and can get overwhelmed. Don't forget to take time for yourself as well. I took yesterday an evening off. I'm like, Tuesday night, that's going to be me time. So make sure you have some me time in amongst everything you're doing. So don't forget about that. All right.